Weight Watchers now offers access to affordable GLP-1s.
Weight Watchers has everything I need, from weight loss medications to nutrition support and help with my side effects.
With our program, our members are losing more weight with expert nutrition and side effect support.
Weight Watchers prescribing GLP-1 medications. It's been life-changing.
Better results, expert support, lose more weight, make it last. Get started for as low as $25 at WeightWatchers.com.
All medications require eligibility and prescription. First month as low as $25 with a 12-month Med Plus plan. Does not include the cost of GLP-1 medications.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
So close they can smell it. The Liberals could be hours away from a majority government. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The top news stories
and conversations that matter to you.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Moments from a majority. 3 federal by-elections are being held today, and if the Liberals do as well as expected, Prime Minister Carney will soon command a majority government. The conclusion of these by-election campaigns arrived just 24 hours after a triumphant Liberal Party celebrated successes at a convention in Montreal. And during the convention's closing speech, Prime Minister Carney couldn't resist pointing out the Liberals have managed to attract 5 MPs from other parties, MPs who have crossed the floor.
Canadians are being called to serve, but not against something, for each other. And that is why you're here. Because you believe, like I believe, that Canada is only strong when it works for everyone. That's our objective. And that's our heritage. After all, Canada is a nation forged through accommodation, not assimilation, through partnership, not domination. The founding insight of our country is that unity does not require uniformity.
That line was widely seen as a recognition that some of these floor crossers have no history of supporting the Liberal Party, such as lifelong social conservative Marilyn Gladu, or Lori Idlout, who just days before her floor crossing from the NDP supported Avi Lewis, the new NDP leader. And while Mr. Carney was clearly the star of this Liberal show, the current Prime Minister did make mention of the last Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau.
Justin Trudeau widened the scope of our inclusive society by lifting, think about it, by lifting almost 1 million Canadian children out of poverty. He walked the path of reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. And he built a true compact with future generations.
Justin Trudeau did record a message that was played at this convention, but he made bigger news this weekend for pictures posted on social media hanging out with his girlfriend, Katy Perry, at the Coachella Music Festival in California. As for those by-elections, 3 ridings are in play. One of them is Scarborough Southwest. Bill Blair is the former Liberal MP who held that riding. He's now Canada's ambassador to the UK. The last time a Conservative won that riding was 1984 during the big Mulroney election sweep. The last time it went to the New Democrats was during the Orange Wave election of 2011. Other than that, it's almost always gone for the Liberals over the last 42 years. The other Toronto area riding is University Rosedale. That was last held by former Liberal Cabinet Minister Chrystia Freeland. The riding was created in 2015, and voters there have only ever elected Chrystia Freeland. Terrebonne is more interesting. This is an off-island suburban riding in Montreal. Its current boundaries date back to 2015, and the Bloc Québécois has represented it for most of its existence. The Liberal candidate was declared the winner there in the last election, but the Liberals won by just a single vote. That result was overturned by the Supreme Court of Canada after the Bloc challenged it, blaming an error on Canada Post with a mail-in ballot. That triggered this by-election. The leader of the Bloc Québécois, Yves-François Blanchet, is already conceding the Liberals will have a majority government in a few hours from now. He's not conceding Terrebonne.
Since we all know now that the Liberals have the majority they wanted, I'm tempted to say it is because the Liberals have this majority that the people of Terrebonne and the people of Quebec could, and might choose to have a stronger voice that will speak only for themselves. The history of the Bloc Québécois has always been like that, a special voice for a different people, which always has to protect its difference in terms of the language we speak, in terms of the values which are our own, the way we receive newcomers in Quebec, our economy, which is different, much more based on clean energy and environment than in any other place in Canada. So this is an opportunity for the people of Terrebonne to vote according to what are the interests of Terrebonne and what is the personality and identity of the people of Terrebonne, which are quite like all Quebecers.
After last week's floor crossing by Marilyn Gladu, the Liberals have 171 seats. That's 1 seat short of a majority government. If they win just one of these by-elections tonight, they would have a majority, but the Speaker would have to vote in the event of a tie. That would be avoided if the Liberals managed to win 2 out of 3. And the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, this is a Liberal majority government that would be tainted.
Members of Parliament should stand up for the party and the principles that they said they would when they were looking people in the eye in their elections. If you ran in an election, you went out and you said to little old ladies, to veterans, to truckers, to single moms, that you were going to stand up for the Conservative platform of affordability, safety, and national sovereignty, and to do so as part of the Conservative Party that people voted for, then you should respect those people and honor your word. Mark Carney is saying is that your vote doesn't count, that he's going to use backroom dirty deals to reverse the election result in countless ridings, robbing people of their voice and giving him the power to raise your cost of living. That is wrong. He should respect the democratic will of the Canadian people.
Polling stations for these by-elections opened at 8:30 this morning Eastern Time. They close at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Canada's healthcare system has issues. Everyone knows that. A growing issue is violence in places like hospitals and long-term care homes. Just last week, someone was stabbed in the emergency room of an Edmonton hospital. The United Nurses of Alberta says nurses are facing threats of violence on an almost daily basis. Nurses in Ontario report that assaults and threats happen daily in both hospitals and long-term care homes. And in Nova Scotia, where workers in dozens of long-term care homes are now on strike, healthcare unions have been calling for security upgrades across Nova Scotia's healthcare facilities. Dr. Doris Grinspun is the CEO of the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario, and it's good to hear from you again.
Thank you very much, Rob. Good to be with you.
So, Dr. Grinspun, how would you describe the situation with employees in healthcare confronting violence?
Actually, I would describe it as dramatic and tragic, and worse even than that is not new. Renew put a statement in 2008 calling for zero tolerance of violence against nurses. In 2009, we issue a best practice guideline. In 2019, again, with even a stronger call for action. And when you look at what's happening in the country vis-a-vis also staffing and shortages in terms of staffing replacement or shift tasking from nurses to others that have less preparation, then those that are left to deal with more issues. And also when you look, Rob, about something I think we spoke, you and I, a couple of weeks ago, the fact that from a policy perspective, at least in Ontario, and also in Alberta, by the way, the government decided to do away with an upstream approach to persons that have addictions. Then where do they end? They end up in an emergency room, right? So you are putting a toxic mix, quote unquote, of people that have no services in the community now for safe consumption services, people with more mental health issues because of the economy and how they are affected, homelessness, etc., and regular people that fear for their jobs one day to the next in terms of the public, with less staffing, more stressful environments, and the mix produces what you're seeing.
So what do you think the government or hospital administrators or long-term care operators be doing in light of this?
Well, it's a multi-pronged approach. I will start with the government, please, first, because they shouldn't be issuing policies that contradict the evidence, i.e., they never should have closed safe consumption services. They should be providing more upstream approach, housing, supportive housing, for people that live in the streets of our communities, instead of going and cleaning up the camp, where people are in the streets in the tents. So provide the funding so people can have reduced stress in their lives, and if they have substance use disorders, that they get the services where they need it is in the streets where they are. So that's number one. Number two, the hospitals need to deal with the fallout of bad policies, which is then they need to control access. As you know, in many places they're controlling weapon screening, but that's insufficient. They need to train staff for trauma-informed de-escalation, right, because the staff is confronted with that. They need a flagging system for high-risk patients and visitors. It's not only patients, it's visitors sometimes, right? Environmental design, like, for example, secure workstations, clear sidelines, panic buttons, etc. And consistent incident report and follow-up, so we can learn from that. But it starts with the funding and the policies that need to be aligned with reducing violence in the people that come to emergency departments. Otherwise, no weapon screening will help, because it's not only about weapons. Can be stabbing, as you saw in Alberta, can be punching, can be a million of other things that, by the way, nurses are exposed way more than others. And you mentioned that Canada is in a dire situation. Not that I want to diminish at all. 60% of nurses report workplace violence here annually in Canada. In the U.S., by the way, with the situation in the U.S., is 80% of nurses. So, I mean,
neither numbers are anything to boast about, but I would like to get, if I could, maybe some closing remarks on you on a situation that I've heard about in recent weeks from callers on this show. In long-term care, an issue seems to be resident-on-resident violence. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah.
How prevalent that is?
this is also not a new phenomena. It's even more tragic because, we have also an epidemic of dementia. The biggest problem in long-term care is staffing, is also qualified staffing on the issues that I spoke with you before in terms of de-escalation, in terms of the number of staffing, in terms of people with the capacity to help on de-escalation, and also sufficient staffing, right? Because, and then the other issue in long-term care is that sometimes they put people with mental health illnesses simply because they don't find a different place to put them, and they mix them with people with dementias, and again, a toxic reality both for residents, for the families of the residents, and also for staff.
Okay. Dr. Grinspun, always good to hear from you and get your perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye. Yeah, the CEO of the RNAO, Registered Nurses Association, Dr. Doris Grinspun. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, gas prices are lower across the country to start the work week. Where they could be at the end of the work week, that's another matter, given what's happening with the oil price today. But gas is back below $1.80 a liter in many places. There's been a significant drop in diesel prices as well. Across most of Nova Scotia, gas is going for about $1.78 a liter today. In many parts of Ontario, it's closer to $1.75 a liter. In Calgary, gas prices have actually dipped below, in many places, $1.60 a liter, but no such relief for drivers in Greater Vancouver, where gas prices are still well above $2 a liter at around $2.15. The oil price is up today because of President Trump's threat to block the Strait of Hormuz. Both WTI and Brent futures are above $100 a barrel U.S., with WTI currently trading at $102.30, $102 a barrel, up about 6% on the day. In the United States, one headline I saw in recent days was Donald Trump's $4 problem. And that problem is the fact that gas prices across the United States in the midterm election year are averaging about $4 US a gallon. The average price today, $4.14 US per gallon, which is, when you consider the exchange rate, about $1.50 a liter in Canadian dollars. In Ireland, there have been huge protests because of both the price of fuel and the scarcity of fuel. Gasoline, if people can find any, is going for almost $3 a liter Canadian across Ireland, but hundreds of gas stations are closed because of a fuel shortage and because protests have shut down fuel depots. Michael Martin is the Prime Minister of Ireland, and he just announced an extension of a gas tax cut and a planned increase to Ireland's carbon tax. They're postponing that.
Government is now extending the temporary measures to reduce excise duty on petrol, diesel and marked gas oil from the end of May to the end of July, postponing the increase in carbon tax from May until the budget in October, enhancing the transport support schemes for all haulage operators in the country, for local link and school transport providers and some commercial operators.
The opposition parties in Ireland are planning to call for a vote of non-confidence in the Irish government over the fuel crisis. If you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, now you know with Rob Snow, there's a great new mobile app that will help you hear our show when you want to. Listen live, listen to the podcast. It's called the Seeker app. That's Seeker spelled S-E-E-K-R. And it has all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports. You can download Seeker for iOS or Android. That's Seeker spelled S-E-E-K-R. And now you know with Rob Snow is also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It's a big day in Canadian politics. 3 by-elections and a Liberal majority government on the line. Maybe inevitable, some say. We'll talk about that next with our political pundits on our Newsday panel. This is News Radio. Well, it's time for our Monday Newsday Federal Political Panel. Matthew Dube is back with us, Vice President of Proof Strategies, former NDP MP. How are you, Matthew? Welcome back.
Rob. Thank you.
Yeah. Garry Keller's back, Vice President of Strategy Corps. Garry ran for the Conservatives in the last federal election. How are you, Garry?
Great to be with you. It's a rainy day in Ottawa.
Yeah, rainy, foggy, but fog will get rid of the snow up here in the Gatineau Hills, so we could use that. Garry, let's start with you. What's your prediction for tonight's by-elections, all three of them?
Well, the two in Toronto are going to go Liberal. Those are strong Liberal seats, always have been. You could run a red dog of those seats, and they're gonna vote Liberal. So not too much surprise in the two Toronto seats. I think Terrebonne is going to be very interesting, and I think actually the Liberal Party may have made a tactical error, and it goes back to the ballot itself. Now, your listeners in Calgary will remember the longest ballot, folks. They have struck again in Terrebonne. They struck in Battle River Crowford for Pierre Poilievre's by-election. They have struck again in Terrebonne. And the reason why this is important is the Liberal Party has been going around Terrebonne with giant signs with Mark Carney and his name and his face on it, except Mark Carney isn't on the ballot. And if you write Mark Carney onto your ballot, it's a write-in ballot, your ballot doesn't count. And this is a riding that went Liberal by one single solitary vote. So based on that, I'm going to say the Bloc Québécois ekes out a narrow win.
Oh, really? So, Garry, just for some clarity, so if I went into this voting booth and I see the list of candidates, would I see the name of the Liberal candidate there? Or would it say the name and Liberal, or would it just say the name?
It would say the name and Liberal, but that does not prevent people from going in and thinking otherwise. You know, I've counted write-in ballots in other elections, and I remember there was it came down to this poll, this final poll of write-in ballots, and for the most part, people got it right, but people wrote in Doug Ford. It's a provincial election. They wrote in Doug Ford. There was even one vote for Rob Ford. And I'm not sure he was even alive at the time. So when it comes down to one vote, and this riding came down to one vote, you never know.
That's interesting. All right, Matthew, let's get your prediction. What do you think is going to happen tonight?
Well, look, I'm going to be pretty boring, but I'm going to echo Garry for much of the same reasons, and I would add to that the argument that the Liberals are trying to make the ballot question in Terrebonne about, securing the majority for stability during these uncertain times. That's already a harder sell in Quebec, just given how the electorate feels about that type of request of them. It doesn't fly the same way it might in other parts of the country, but I do think there was a bit of an appetite for it. But now with the news last week of Marilyn Gladue crossing the floor, they only need to win 2 of the 3 tonight to be able to surpass to get a proper majority, meaning they don't need the speaker to break the tie. If my math is correct, I mean, there's been so many convoluted scenarios out there over the last couple of months. But so I think that between that and the factors that Garry rightly points out, I do think that it's going to be a bit more of a difficult sell. Yves-François Blanchet was already out there last week, almost within minutes of Marilyn Gladue crossing the floor, saying, hey, listen, if you're on the fence about who to vote for, a strong Bloc Québécois representative or giving the Liberals the majority, it doesn't matter anymore because they're going to get it either way. So vote for someone that'll represent you in the right way in Ottawa, according to them, obviously. So, I'm inclined to agree. Definitely 2 safe seats in Toronto. And I think a Bloc Québécois somewhat narrow win sounds about right. So I'm gonna +1 Garry's prediction.
Well, Matthew, you've been the Quebec MP on this panel, so let's tap into your expertise. What is it about Terrebonne that the Bloc can win there? I mean, it's off-island. The Liberals do very well on the island of Montreal. What is it about Terrebonne?
Yeah, so I was an MP on the South Shore off-island. This is the North Shore, Terrebonne off-island as well, as you say. So it's a bit of a newer urban sprawl. The South Shore is a bit older communities for over the last 50, 60 years and more. The North Shore, the development's been a bit more recent. So demographically, it's a bit different. It's a bit more working class. It's a bit younger, more homogenous as well than what you'd see on the South Shore. So they tend to support nationalist candidates and parties, the Parti Québécois and the CAQ provincially, the Bloc obviously federally. And they tend to be more on the the right wing, if you will, of the nationalist debate, just having in Quebec. So maybe a bit less focused on progressive issues. If you look at that riding, it's gone Bloc Québécois in all but one election in 2011 when the Orange Wave happened and we won it with the NDP. Obviously, you could say this one vote. I mean, does that still count anymore according to the Supreme Court? That's up for debate, but nevertheless, it's been a Bloc stronghold for exactly that reason, because it's very francophone, very nationalist, and a bit more conservative leaning, which is where those parties tend to sit these days. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that respect as well.
All right, Garry. So let's assume that your prediction doesn't come true and the Liberals win there. What signal does that send, if any?
Well, I mean, I don't want to put too much into this Terrebonne result if it goes to the Liberals, simply because it's been a Liberal Bloc fight for the last number of elections. They won it by one vote last time, and the reason why we're having a by-election is because a number of people came forward and said, well, I mailed in my ballot, and it came back after the election, and they had the wrong postal code on the return envelope that the Elections Canada had provided. So, this is a back-and-forth battle between Liberals and Bloc East, and they had it, after the 2025 election. So, I don't want to read too much into the tea leaves and what Terrebonne means for the country. I think we have to look at it in isolation very much as the one riding where, it was a one vote difference last time. And right. It could go either way.
Could go either way.
It's not a bellwether for the country.
All right. When we come back, we'll talk about if a majority is inevitable. Let's talk about how it's been assembled. This is News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
It's our Monday News Day political panel on by-election day. Matthew Dube is with us from Proof Strategies, Garry Keller from Strategy Corp. So the two of you think that by the end of business today, the Liberals will have their majority government. But Matthew, what do you think about how this has been cobbled together?
Well, it's fascinating because I think the government's now going to have to pivot from managing a minority circumstance with managing their caucus, because it's a bit of an eclectic mix that's been cobbled together, as you say. Listen, I was floored when I saw Marilyn Gladu cross the floor last week. I've said on a number of occasions that I thought it was a very ham-fisted the way Matt Jenner, sort of resigned and then unresigned in order to cross the floor much after the fact. So, and then obviously, everyone's aware of the circumstances behind some of the comments that Michael Ma made in committee recently around forced labor in China. So there's, I think Chris D'Entremont at this point, the first one, is the only one who's kind of got a legitimate reason, it would seem, without any baggage in that sense. So it's a bit messy. And I think right now everyone's going to be feeling good. They're going to be a bit high on their own supply, if I can use that phrase, the Liberals. But, the fact that they've put it together this way is going to be hard going forward to manage that caucus, I think.
Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting. What do you think, Garry?
It's going to be interesting. I would like to see some polling in a couple of weeks from now when asked, if they do form the majority government, basically through floor crossing, what the Canadian public thinks of that. Because I was at a party fundraiser recently in the riding that I ran in Nipissing-Temiskaming last week, actually the day that Marilyn Gladu crossed the floor. And people were angry. They were viscerally angry about the news that Canadians elected a minority parliament, and to cobble together this majority through quote unquote underhanded means isn't very democratic. And so it'll be interesting to see if they do get their majority government, if that sentiment is reflected in the will of Canadians. And I suspect, major pollsters will be doing some work about that in the coming days. The other thing about Marilyn Gladu's crossing that I found very surprising was I happened to sit next to her on the plane coming back from the Calgary Conservative Convention. And she was enthused about Pierre Poilievre's leadership, really excited to get back to work in Ottawa in February, to hold the Liberals to account. Just thought Pierre's speech to the membership was fantastic. And to see this here, I think it is just it's more an indictment about her than about anything else. And,
so what was your reaction, Garry? I'd love to know your reaction. I really wanted to ask you this. Whatever it was, you got a buzz on your phone or an alert on your phone, or somebody came up and told you, Marilyn Gladu from Sarnia is crossing the floor and joining the Liberals. Like, what was your immediate reaction? I was sort of dumbfounded myself.
I had to read it 2 or 3 times because, to your point, she's been one of the most socially conservative members of the caucus. She was pro-convoy. She was the civil liberties critic for the Conservative Party, concerned about civil liberties in Canada. And here she is joining the Liberal Party. So I see this as just naked self-interest in her part. She probably was she's been in opposition for 10 years and probably said, I'm tired of this. I'm going to go do something else. Maybe the Liberals will have me in government.
Okay. Let's turn our attention to something else. We had these reports last week, maybe 8 or 9 more floor crossers potentially. The Star reports 40 MPs in the Conservative caucus don't think they'll win under Poilievre, but Poilievre just had a huge endorsement at that Calgary convention from the rank and file, from the grassroots of the Conservative Party. So given that, Garry, I mean, could you see, say, MPs in the Conservative caucus using the Reform Act to oust him? Could they do an O'Toole to Poilievre?
Well, let's take the previous conversation, again, to the conversation we just had. Nobody had Marilyn Gladu on their bingo card as a potential floor crosser. So if Marilyn Gladu is the floor crosser, I mean, there's probably a lot more people who you might not think of being floor crossers who might fit into that category. But the reality is, I think Conservative caucus members can also read the tea leaves. They saw the 87% vote that Mr. Poilievre received. And if they were, as a sitting member of the caucus, try to invoke the Reform Act, I think they would have a serious backlash against them at home in their riding associations and their voter lists and their donors. And so I suspect that the path that you just outlined through the Reform Act isn't an option for most Conservative caucus members. And perhaps that's why Ms. Gladu said, that's not an option for me. I'm going to go this route to express whatever displeasure she has. And I can't explain it why, because she was so pro-Poilievre after the convention.
Matthew, what do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think there's a lot of talk right now, right? It's a lot of posturing, anonymously, granted, but I think Pierre Poilievre's biggest challenge right now is a narrative one. I think obviously the fact that we're talking about this, I mean, rightfully so, it's an important story, but I think the constant chatter about this, the sort of Damocles over that caucus in terms of a potential other floor crossers, I just think is unhelpful. It takes them off message. It's probably not what they want to be spending their time doing. I think sometimes that's the kind of the challenge with the Reform Act. It's why I was in a caucus that chose not to adopt those powers when I was in the NDP caucus, because ultimately you're kind of faced with your own self-interest as an elected person and how the leader impacts you in a specific way, either as a person or in your riding, versus whatever the membership decided, and whether or not you think that the segment of membership that maybe voted in that particular instance, that attended convention in this case, is sufficiently representative. So it poses a lot of challenges. I don't think they're out of the woods on that front yet, although I think at some point, if you're in that caucus, if you're the caucus chair, maybe more so than the leader. I mean, I've been in that role as caucus chair. I think you got to start telling people, put up or shut up at this point. I don't think I've been on the inside, in one way as Garry has in another. And, at some point people start losing patience with the anonymous comments to the media. At some point you got to, you want to cross the floor, then just do it and put your name to it.
Okay. When we come back, again, working from the assumption that a Liberal majority is in the cards, does that necessarily mean that an election is off until, say, October of 2029? Does this thing go to the distance? Ask our political experts when we come back. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now you know with Rob Snow. Returns on News Radio.
We're here with Garry Keller from Strategy Corp, Matthew Dube from Proof Strategies. So there was a report, if they get the majority, the Liberals would prorogue, kind of hit the reset button. Mark Carney, hours later, ruled that out during a news conference. But let's say it is a Liberal majority government starting tomorrow. Does that necessarily mean that this is a government that goes the distance and we're not having an election until 2029? What's your best guess, Garry?
I think it means that we're probably not having an election in 2026 and probably not in 2027. After that, all bets are off, depending on where the polls are and how ready the Liberal Party feels in advance of an election. But, it's pretty clear that Mr. Carney told the Liberal Party and his team, said, I don't want to hold a general election. I want to govern. Go find me enough MPs to make that possible. It's a lot easier to find 4 or 5 floor crossers to make that possible than to go to the polls, spend $40 million, have a 37-day election, and still not be guaranteed of a majority government.
Okay, interesting. Matthew, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't see why you would. I mean, I think Mark Carney's not only practically, but just even politically, and the message that he's putting out there is that, these are serious times for serious people. That's how he brands himself. And so I think that getting the majority and then, arguably some people might perceive it as an underhanded way, whether or not that's true reality or perception. The fact is that you get your majority one way or another, and then you're going to turn around to try to get another one through an election before, the regular sort of lifespan of what will now be a majority government. So it doesn't, that's a convoluted way for me to say it doesn't really make much sense. And I think it would be off brand. And I think what I've heard and learned about the man is I think that he truly, whether you agree with him or not, I think he does just want to get things done. And so now that he, assuming all goes as we all expect today, having the ability to do that unhindered in the House, I don't see why he wouldn't just proceed in that way.
Okay. Well, we only have a minute left, so we don't have time to talk Quebec politics, maybe for the better anyway. So I'm assuming, Matthew, given that you're off Island Montreal, you must be a Habs fan?
Oh, I sure am. It's exciting time.
Yeah, okay, so, you're a Habs fan.
There's a lot of room on the bandwagon.
Good luck to you. Good luck to the I'm firmly on the Ottawa Senators bandwagon, and I know Garry is an Oilers fan. So
Here.
I will say this. Go Sens, go.
Let's hope for an Oilers or Habs or Sens final. There you go.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Garry. I'm with you on that. You've had your fill in Edmonton anyway. You've had your fill, like 2 Stanley Cup finals back to back. Come on.
Yeah, we got to win one. And it'll make Gary Bettman mad, too. So an Edmonton, Ottawa, or Edmonton, Montreal final, he'd be furious. So there you go.
True.
I love it.
Okay. All right. Good luck to all 3 Canadian teams because they will be the only Canadian teams in the playoffs by the looks of things. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Sure. Great to be with you.
Matthew Dube, Vice President of Proof Strategies, former NDP MP Garry Keller, Vice President of Strategy Corps, ran unsuccessfully for the Conservatives in the last federal election. Talkback is coming up next. We will talk politics today. It's a big day for Canadian politics, big day for the country. We haven't had a majority government in this country for more than 10 years. This is News Radio. Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today, a Liberal majority government. That's our topic of the day. A Liberal majority government. That could be the state of our government after today. A Liberal majority government. A majority government. Barely 1 year after the voters of Canada elected a Liberal minority government, but decided that the Liberal Party deserved another term in office because it had a new leader, Mark Carney. And if this comes to pass, the Liberals will have achieved this majority government through a combination of 2 things. By-elections, 3 by-elections, as we've been telling you, being decided tonight, and through floor crossing. 5 MPs that were elected under different party banners crossed the floor and joined the Liberals. 4 of them were elected as Conservatives. 1 was elected as a New Democrat. They're all Liberals today. So, look, it's a big day in politics. Big day for the country. Big day for Prime Minister Mark Carney. We have some questions that we want to ask you about this. We want to get your take on it because, majority governments are becoming more rare these days, it seems. So here's a question for you. as a conversation starter, to start the week on Talkback, let's say after tonight, we all wake up tomorrow and the Liberals have a majority government. Do you view that as a legitimate majority government? Or would it have, a taint to it? A bad smell? What do you think? Because so many MPs crossed the floor to make this happen. Do you think that this government would be tainted because of that? Illegitimate in some way. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Would you be happy that the Liberals could have a majority government? A majority government would offer stability in troubled times. And, if a full-fledged federal election was held today, all the polls indicate it would be a Liberal majority government anyway. And rather easily. So perhaps if the Liberals win these by-elections tonight, they only need one. They only need to win one to get a majority. Maybe you could say that's just a reflection of current public opinion anyway. What do you think? Are you happy? Would you be happy if the Liberals had a majority government after tonight? They'll be calling the shots. Even more so than they are now. They won't have to worry about the Conservatives or the Bloc or the NDP. They won't have to take any water with their wine. They don't have to worry about the other parties gumming things up. They won't have to worry about confidence votes in the House of Commons. Maybe for as long as another 3.5 years or so. Would that please you? Do you think that's what the country needs? Would it make you happy? Or on the flip side, does the very idea of it kind of turn you off, make you sad, make you feel upset, even angry? This wasn't the will of the people the last time everyone had their say. In these floor crossers, the case could be made. They just ignored the will of their voters and bolted to the other side, despite the results in their own ridings in the last election. Does it make you upset, angry, sad that the Liberals could soon have a majority government? 1-833-668-2577. Let's say we wake up tomorrow and the Liberals have this majority. What do you want them to do with it? What do you want them to do? Because they will be fully in command. They will be in charge. They won't be able to blame the opposition for anything. Any shortcomings, any mistakes will be theirs and theirs alone. They won't be able to blame anything on the opposition. They will be free and clear to enact whatever the Liberal plan for this country happens to be. And you hear the Prime Minister say it all the time. There's a rupture. There's a rupture. It's time to be bold. It's time to build. It's time to be bold and build faster than we've ever been bold and built before. It's time to make Canada more resilient, all this stuff. And Mark Carney is going to be more in charge than he's ever been in charge before. He will have almost free reign to do whatever he wants, to enact his vision for this country for the next 3.5 years. So that's awesome power. What do you want him to do with it? If the Liberals are set to have a majority government, what do you want them to do with it that would make Canada a better place? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. On election night almost 1 year ago, the Liberals had 169 seats by the time everyone went to bed. After tonight, they could have as many as 174. And a majority government with a cushion. So let's talk about that today on Talkback. It's legitimacy, whether the idea of a Liberal majority government pleases you or not, whether it makes you happy, upset, or angry. And if this is going to be the governing reality for Canada over the next few years, a Liberal majority government, what do you want them to do with it? What do you want the Liberals to do with that enviable status 1-833-668-2577. That's our call-in line. If you've never called before, just mention that, and we will make your call a priority. Canadians didn't elect a majority government a year ago. They could have one tonight anyway. So let's kick that around for a while. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback. So Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So after tonight, depending on the outcome of 3 by-elections, 2 in the Toronto area, 1 in the Montreal area, the Liberals could have a majority government. Would you view a majority government by the Liberals as legitimate, or would it have a taint to it? Would it make you happy if the Liberals had a majority government, or upset or angry? And if they have a majority government, what do you want them to do with it? They would have free reign. 1-833-668-2577 and have your say on Talkback today. And we're off and running with Ellis is up first in Calgary today. Hello, Ellis.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Ellis. Yeah. What's your opinion, Ellis?
It's go for the by-elections. I think it doesn't matter who wins, which party wins or loses. Those are legitimate reasons for the government to come into power. When it comes to the floor crossers, I think there has to be a little bit more governance put over that. For example, if somebody wants to switch parties, they have to be audited. The transaction for the change has to be audited by the Elections Canada to see if there's no monetary gain for that person. If they cross parties, it has to be completely non-monetary value. So that means they don't get paid for crossing or stuff like that. Just some checks and balances that way.
All right.
The second hurdle would have to be, especially in this day and world where we got all this digital media and stuff like that, they know who all the people who voted for this individual, because we're all registered, right, in the database. So they would have to send out either in letter form or electronically a link to a website asking the question, do you approve of this candidate switching to the other party? And if they all say yes, then fine. If they all say no, they can't. And if there's a margin when yes or no, that's the will of the people. It has to be in the people's hands.
Oh, I see. So you want some kind of say in floor crossing?
Oh yeah. I think it's when people go to vote for a person, they're voting for their party and the person and what they represent. Now they can't go and change that halfway through without them notifying people that voted for them.
Sure. But let's take this Marilyn Gladu, who crossed the floor from the Conservatives to the Liberals last week. Okay, now she's a very, very smart individual. She's a chemical engineer, as I understand it, like very, very smart person. If she was somehow to be made a cabinet minister in the government, she would get a big raise. She would get $100,000 raise, right? She would go from making $200,000 to $300,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think that should be allowed?
Well, it's not that it shouldn't be allowed. It should be justified, right?
Like well, you said there shouldn't be any monetary gain, but somebody making an extra $100,000 a year is certainly a monetary gain.
Well, the monetary gain when it comes to switching to the party at that point, no. But if they get into the position and say they want to make them up their wage because they're going to give more responsibility, well, that's something completely different, right?
Right. But what I'm getting from you is some of this has kind of a bad smell because it's been assembled through floor crossers, which you disapprove of.
No, yeah, exactly. There has to be more rigor and governance put over them because they're not doing what the people wanted because the people voted them in under a different party, right? They have to go back to the people. Plus, there can't be any monetary value for this individual during that transaction at all.
Okay, thank you, Ellis. Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to go around in circles, Ellis. Thank you. Perry up next. Hi, Perry. First time caller. Rob? Yeah, I'm good, Perry. What do you think?
Yeah, I was going to make it quick. I got to go, but thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
If the Liberals win a majority government today, I think it's all because of Pierre. Pierre's attitude.
His attitude. Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
That's all I got to say. Yeah,
Why
I
do you
got to
say that,
I
though?
got to go here. Thanks for taking my call, there, Rob.
All right. Okay. I wish we had a little more time so I could probe a little deeper there. I mean, if people want to get into that, what role has Pierre Poilievre in his leadership style, or what have you played in what some view as the inevitability of tonight's result? We can explore that as we make our way through Talkback today. Let's go to Vicky, is in Halifax. Hello, Vicky.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, Vicky, thank you. Yeah, what's your opinion, Vicky?
Glad you?
Glad to. Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah. I'm glad about it. Are you? But yeah, Carney has a lot of Carney candy that he gives out, and he's pretty irresistible. I think maybe Pierre Poilievre may cross the floor. Then what happens?
Well, I don't see that happening. No, I don't see that happening. Right. Okay. But you would be happy. What I want to get at here is you would be happy if it's a Liberal majority government?
Yeah, if it keeps our costs down. If it doesn't keep our costs down and they run unchecked, I think Carney's a pretty smart individual. If he grows our economy and fixes the trade issues and doesn't have a lot of pushback because he's, got the majority and he does the right thing, I think a lot of people trust Carney. If it was Trudeau, we might be, very scared. But I think Carney is very likable, very smart. I just hope he uses his intelligence in the right direction to lead Canada, and then we'll all be happy. We'll all be glad, even you.
Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see what comes of it. Again, what I want to get at is if they have a majority government, I mean, they will be calling the shots. They won't be able to blame any of the opposition parties because there's nothing the opposition parties can do to prevent the Liberals from enacting their mandate. So what do you want them to do?
Well, I really want them to grow our economy. I want them to support Alberta and the oil industry a bit because we need to not stop that. And we really need to fix our trade issues with the U.S. because it's coming up. And if that doesn't go through, we're in big trouble.
Okay. Thank you for your opinion, Vicky. Vicky will be happy. Vicky seems to like the idea of the Liberal majority government. What about you? It's not a reality without 5 people crossing the floor. Let's, be pretty clear about that right now. What about you? Would you view it as being a bit tainted? Would it have a bad smell to it if there's a majority government tonight? Would it make you pleased? Would you be happy if it's a Liberal majority government? Stability in a time of uncertainty, they say. That's the pitch. Stability in a time of uncertainty. And what do you want them to do with it? If they have unencumbered governance of this country for the next 3.5 years. 1-833-668-2577. A big day in federal politics. Let's talk about it on Talkback on News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're talking about the possible outcome of these 3 by-elections that could hand the Liberals a majority government. The election last year was April 28th, so it's coming up on the 1-year anniversary of that it was a minority. 1 year ago. Could be a majority as of tonight. Corey in Calgary. Hi, Corey.
Hey, Rob. How is it going today?
Yeah, very good, Corey. Thank you very much for calling. What's your opinion?
Well, I hope the Liberal government is putting a nail in the coffin in Alberta. That'll change everything. But really, there's other scandals going on too, right? With the finance minister and stuff like that. That's not really being brought up, just the flow crossers. In the by-elections, they'll get their majority, and we'll just keep on going on as we go on. And I don't see them cutting any costs for cost of living or anything like that. I just see them going up and up and up.
Right. Well, would you like them to do something on that? I mean, for example, in Australia, they've cut the gas tax. They cut gas taxes by 28 cents a litre. I mentioned off the top of the program in Ireland, I don't know if people are following the news in Ireland. It's out of control. The gas tax protests in Ireland, the running out of gas in in Ireland. So they were supposed to raise their carbon tax. The government decided not to do that, and they already cut gas taxes, and that was supposed to end, and they extended it again. Would you like something, for example, on that front?
Well, they should, right? But they're not going to, right? I mean,
they haven't
the
yet.
Government itself, right? I don't think they will be. You read his book and stuff like that. It's not going to happen, right? The more we have to pay, the less reliant we're going to be on it, right? But then there's different areas in this country where batteries are not good enough. It was an epic fail for batteries and buses in Edmonton. So, it's just the environment we live in. We need to figure out how to be more efficient.
So just generally speaking, if it happens, it happens. But would you be upset or angry at all, just as someone from Alberta?
From Alberta, it's decided in the East anyways. And really, I look at this way. They get the East finally realizes how Alberta feels, right, when it's done and over with.
Well, I just wonder if it's going to inflame those passions even more. The fact that it will be, it'll be 2 ridings in Toronto and 1 in Montreal that that could hand the Liberals a majority government tonight if they win all 3.
Oh, it is. It is what it is. You have a wonderful day.
It is what it is. All right, you too. Thank you, Corey. Be right back right after the news here on News Radio. The Liberals could be less than 12 hours, we'll say, away from a majority government. Would be the first majority government formed in this country in more than 10 years. The last majority government that was elected was in 2015, when Justin Trudeau wasn't running around music festivals with pop stars in California. He was actually trying to become prime minister. And he did. He won a majority government. But he never won another one. In 2018, he tried, but the voters gave the Liberals only 33% of the vote. But that was good enough for a minority. Andrew Scheer was the Conservative Party leader then. The Conservatives actually had 34% of the vote and more votes overall, but they still lost. And then in 2021, the Liberals, you'll remember, tried to take advantage of the rally around the flag mood with the pandemic, tried to grab a majority government. That didn't happen. The Liberals had 32% of the vote. The Conservatives had 33%. But still under leader Aaron O'Toole, they lost. The NDP actually had 17% of the vote in that election and picked up an extra seat. And then in the last election, about a year ago, April 28th of last year, the Liberals under Mark Carney, of course, had the historic comeback, captured 43% of the vote, picked up what was then 17 seats, and won another minority government. The Conservatives did perform pretty well on election night a year ago, just not well enough. They had 41% of the vote, gained 24 seats, and still lost. And a lot of that was because the NDP nosedived in popular support, just 6% of the vote. So the Conservatives didn't benefit much from vote splitting on the progressive left side of the spectrum. So, tonight is a big night. It could mean the first time a political party has formed a majority government in more than 10 years. But how would you view that? Because, 5 people have crossed the floor, which helps greatly. How do you view it? Let's go to Eric is in Halifax today. Hello, Eric.
Hey, good afternoon, Rob.
Yeah, hi, Eric.
Well, first of all, it's a foregone conclusion. He's got to get his majority. That's what he wanted from day one. And what I'd like to see him do, he was on there the other day at Montreal, and he said he's going to make the country strong. Well, do it. Never mind talking about it. Just do it. Unite Canada, because Canada is so far apart from each other. It isn't funny. So I would like to see him make the country stronger than it is.
So how could he do that, though? How could he make the country stronger? How could he unite the country more than it is?
Well, he can do a lot of things. He has the power to do a lot of stuff. So he just got to practice what he preaches. And what else can you say about it? He's got his back against the wall because people do want a stronger country to live in and a better economy and all this stuff. So he's got to do what he says he's going to do, and there's no more to say about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Eric. to Tim in Nova Scotia. Hello, Tim. You're on the line, Tim.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Tim.
I'm going to go back, for starters, to I think it was your first or second caller that was suggesting that there would be no monetary gain by suing the party. I said, outright, or should be an investigation. But who's to say that it wasn't part of the agreement that they would get a seat in the House, or that he knows a lot of people and there was some sort of financial fallback from crossing the force?
Well, I wouldn't cast those aspersions. I mean, the most obvious reward would be putting someone from the opposition side of the House who crosses the floor into government. You would give them a cabinet post, because I mean, $100,000 is $100,000, and it's a $100,000 raise if you're a cabinet minister. There are a lot of liberals who have always been liberals who would like to be cabinet ministers, not just because of the raise, but the prestige that comes with it. So, that's it. That's the carrot you could dangle.
He's involved in a lot of big businesses, or has had dealing with big businesses. Who's to say, like I said, he can't make a phone call and say, okay, look at all the scandals the Liberals have had over the past years over conflict and ethic violations. Who's to say he's like, I'll make a phone call so your business profits, or there's no direct connection. I know them. They can't prove that.
Right.
These are very shady people. They've been doing shady deals, and I can't believe the Liberals are still supporting him, talking bad about Trudeau on here, and didn't hear how positively he was speaking about Trudeau the other night.
Right. Okay. But listen, let's say, you heard Eric there say it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Let's say it is inevitable, and let's say it is going to happen. I mean, especially with these Toronto area ridings. Do you think it has a taint to it? Would you view it as a legitimate government? Or
I think it's the same thing they've done the past so many years between the NDP, the snap election. It's power hungry, power grabs. And now it's the European. The video's out there. And I do want to say one more thing. For all you people out in the West, stop lumping all us East Coasters together and saying that it's the East Coast, because it's Ontario and Quebec that decide the elections. You've got Edmonton out there. I think it was you that called it Redmonton?
Redmonton, yes, Redmonton. Yeah, that's what they call it out there, too.
Yeah, so stop pointing all the fingers over here and point where it's actually going. Quebec and Ontario, they're the ones that control the elections, not us. And I just think there's so much corruption, and it's unbelievable. I don't think he has the best interest in Canada at all. And one of your last callers that was talking about making a deal with Trump, he had a whole year to do it. He been caught on tape saying, who cares? He doesn't care. Get your head out of the sand.
All right. I would just point out every single riding in your province is held by a Liberal, sir. Every single one. 11 out of 11.
I understand that, and it doesn't mean I agree with it.
Okay, thank you.
How many
All right.
seats are in Nova Scotia versus
11.
how many are in Edmonton?
There's 11. Yeah, there's 11. I don't know how many in Edmonton itself. I don't know how many are in Edmonton offhand. I'll look it up. I'll look it up during the break, but we have to stop. Thank you. Be right back. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So just to entertain the last caller, Tim in Nova Scotia, Edmonton. Tim, if you're still listening, has 9 ridings in the Edmonton proper area. One of them is held by a New Democrat, Edmonton Strathcona, Heather McPherson, who ran for the NDP leadership recently and was the runner-up to Avi Lewis. The other 8, a year ago on the election night, went all for the Conservatives. 8 out of 9. But now there's one Liberal there because of a floor crosser. Matt Genereux, who crossed the floor, he won the riding of Edmonton Riverbend with 49.9, let's call it 50% of the vote. just so you know, let's take a call from Edmonton. Rod is in Edmonton. Hello, Rod.
Hey, Rob. How you doing? Hope you're well.
Very good. Very good. So it could be a Liberal majority government after tonight. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Either way, it does. I'm happy with it. Happy for the Liberal Party. Happy for Carney. Too bad for the Conservatives and Polyev. But the way I look at it is, is it fair game? Is it dirty pool? Is it legitimate? I believe a win's a win. Like if you look at the Stanley Cup playoffs, for example, a garbage goal goes in to win Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. It goes off a transition strip on the boards or the glass, and it sneaks by the goalie like it's a garbage goal, but hey, a win's a win. Now, are the players on the losing team or the team that didn't win, are they going to be in the dressing room blaming the arena maintenance staff, because of that transition strip is half an inch or a couple millimeters out? I just believe a win's a win.
Okay. What about the people who have been calling in, not just today, but last week as well? We took quite a few calls from people who, they question the integrity of these people. They were elected as, say, Conservatives, 4 of them. One of them was elected as a New Democrat. They were sent there as New Democrats, or they were sent there as Conservatives to Ottawa,
right.
Not Liberals, and they've betrayed their voters. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I have been thinking about that, and I probably won't have a really good answer. But if I look at it as I have a job, the company culture is really bad. Do I want to stick with it? No, I'm going to look for another job. I'm going to look for a better culture that can help grow me individually.
Right.
Now, the colleagues that I trained to make leaders and build them in the organization, do I feel I turn my back on them? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. But I believe that the people that I left behind will be strong enough and and become a little bit more resilient in understanding why. Now, if I crossed, did I do it for me? Did I do it because I don't like the party or don't like my constituency? Or do I not like the culture of the party that I used to be involved with?
Yeah, fair enough point. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, good to get a call from Edmonton. Thank you, Rod. To Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. Sam is in Lunenburg today. Hi, Sam.
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
Yeah, very good, Sam. Thanks for calling. What's your opinion on the possibility of a Liberal majority?
Yeah, I think a bit of a mixed bag of emotions on my feeling towards this specific Liberal majority. On the one hand, there's going to be a massive asterisk next to the majority that it, wouldn't have formed without 5 floor crossings. And I do believe, I think floor crossing, it definitely is, it can be a bit of a gray area. I don't think it's necessarily always black and white, but for the most part, I do think that for the individual MPs who are crossing the floor, for the most part, I think it shows a pretty big lack of integrity. And I tend to, for the most part, agree with the NDP's policy of not allowing, opposing party MPs to cross the floor into their party. They don't allow that. You have to, if you want to join the NDP, you have to win through an election. On the other hand, do I think a Carney majority would be good for Canada right now?
Yeah.
Again, I guess kind of a mixed bag because I think so far, I think I would say I'm relatively happy with the direction Carney is steering things. I mean, he's investing into defense. He recently invested $3.8 billion into, nature, as he said. We'll see how that's spent, but I think those are 2, huge things. I mean, you need to be able to defend yourself, and if you don't leave behind a natural world and a healthy state for the next generation, then who cares how much you grew the economy? And I think with the leader of the opposition, when it comes to the nature side of things, we would have seen moves in the opposite direction. At the same time, I like minority governments because there are more checks and balances. I've seen firsthand here in my home province what happens when one man gets a little bit too much power. But overall, I tend to think that Carney will do well with a majority government and steer things in the right direction.
Fair enough. Sam, thank you for your opinion. Appreciate it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 lines available for Talkback today on a big day in Canadian politics, maybe just hours away from a majority government for the Liberal Party. How do you feel about that? 1-833-668-2577 and have your say on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go to Joe in Calgary up next here on Talkback and ask him about the idea of a Liberal majority government could happen in just a few hours from now. What do you think, Joe?
Well, partly as a result of civil servants that were laid off in Ontario. Lo and behold, I can't remember the premier's name at the time, the two premiers back to back, that introduced all sorts of environmental incentives that did nothing but drive the price of everything up. And of course, thanks to the NDP government, Notley, they hired hundreds of thousands of people, and guess where they moved to? They moved to Edmonton. So same thing's happening right now. The problem is there's just so much money, so many announcements, so much money that was set aside for these pet projects that eventually even Carney's going to even with majority, he's going to have to prorogue Parliament like Trudeau did just to make everything go away.
Oh, you think there will be a prorogation of Parliament? He's ruled that out, by the way.
Well, of course, he also said many things like he wasn't he was going to give you the carbon tax. Okay, well, Germany today announced a 20-cent U.S. a liter less taxes for people filling up
gasoline?
in Germany.
For
Right.
gasoline, you mean? Oh, right. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't hear
it was
that.
announced- no, it was on Al Jazeera. And anyways, if it's coming from Al Jazeera, it's got to mean something. In any case, they're also not allowed to raise the price by more than once a day, right? Whereas over here in Alberta, anyways, it's all over the map, price-wise. But we don't mind. We're benefiting it from whatever's happening. I'm also the one that called that there'll soon be boots on the ground, and then I know some politicians are already talking about it.
Okay, I don't want to go wandering off all over the place here, Joe. The fact that by tomorrow it could be a Liberal majority government, how does that make you feel? Like, are you upset by that news? Are you angry by that news? Would you welcome it? Some people think, it's a time of turmoil. We could use some stability. Where do you come down on that?
Well, it's inevitable, but that doesn't mean that. You notice how that April 1st deal between Alberta and the Carney government went by the wayside, and now there was an article in National Post a few weeks ago about how they're going to go after, they're going to tax merchandise coming out of the States because it's not subject to our carbon taxes. And of course, over 50% of the trade that we do with the States is that we do trade-wise is from the States.
Again, I'm trying to ask a pretty specific question here, Joe, and I just can't seem to get you to answer it. So I'm going to have to move along. The music's playing anyway. If you're on the line, please be patient. We want to bring you up to date on the latest breaking news on a very busy news day, and then right back to your phone calls on what is a big day in Canadian politics with 3 by-elections, 2 in the Toronto area, 1 in the Montreal area, that many believe will result in a Liberal majority government a little less than 1 year after the voters denied them that privilege and delivered a minority government for the Liberals. Their 4th election win in a row, by the way. 1-833-668-2577 to have your say on News Radio. A big day in Canadian politics. That's the topic of Talkback today. Welcome to hour number 2. I'm Rob Snow. Depending on the outcome of 3 by-elections tonight, the Liberals could have a majority government. But would you view it as legitimate? Because of all of those floor crossers, 5 of them in all, would you be happy if the Liberals had a majority government, or would it make you upset or even angry? And if they have a majority government, what do you want them to do with it? 1-833-668-2577. I mean, you could make the case. If it didn't happen this way, Prime Minister Carney could always go see the Governor General and ask the Governor General to pull the plug on Parliament. Let's have an election. Because if an election was held today, the Liberals would probably win. And it would be a massive majority government. According to the polls, Mark Carney and the Liberals are more popular today than they were this time last year. Whatever Mark Carney is doing, I'm telling you, it's working for him. I was mentioning some of the national polls last week. Spark Insights, Liberals 46, Conservatives 32. Ipsos has the Liberals at 45 and the Conservatives at 33. Abacus Data has a bit of a narrower race. 6-point lead. Liberals 44, Conservatives 38. That's kind of the outlier, though. Liaison has it a 10-point lead. Liberals 43, Conservatives 33. Nanos 15-point lead for the Liberals, 46 to 31. The polling website 338canada.com says you take all the polls, do an average, project a seat count based on the polling results. Liberals win 211 seats. They would gain 42 seats. The Liberals would lose 40 seats and win around 103. And the NDP, poor NDP, they'd win just 5 seats. Just 5 seats, my gosh. So, I mean, you make the case the Liberals would be calling the shots anyway. If we had an election, we'd be here anyway. What do you think? Kathy in Nova Scotia. Hello, Kathy.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I just want to start. First of all, I think it's disgusting what's happened over the last year. But also your last comment there about it doesn't matter because they'd win anyway. Well, we might as well just get rid of elections then. I mean, it's kind of a false narrative. But these guys that have crossed the floor, and I'd say if the Liberals had worked as hard, maybe fixing the trade relationship with the U.S. over the last year instead of bribing candidates to come over, we might be in a different place. You got to say, though, this just hurts voter apathy. You know, it adds to voter apathy. And
I would agree there.
And
I would agree there.
It's just a terrible example for young people. And I just think, you know, I watched the Liberal leadership, and I voted Liberal and Conservative, but when I heard Carney espouse on about Trudeau on the weekend, about his greatest traits and what he's done for Canada, when Canada's at the bottom of the G7 on many fronts, I won't get into that, you can do it, and I just think it says it all. He kind of let the veil slip a little bit because he's tried to distance himself from Trudeau, but, you know, let's not forget he was a special advisor on all those policies Trudeau put in place. And Canadians have fallen into this because of the Trump thing and the U.S. thing, and they've used it. And instead of doing their job and working to make Canada better, they've leveraged this negative relationship with the United States. Anyway, I appreciate you taking my call. And
well, I appreciate your call. I mean, you sound like you're genuinely upset that this is coming to pass.
Well, I'm not. Like, I have to let it go because you can't do much about it. But I listened to the calls, and it just struck me today. I have to call. I just think it's disgusting, honestly. And the fact that the rigor of the conversation, for the most part, not on your show, I'm just saying we're not looking at all the stuff that really matters. It's easy for Carney to spend lots of money on. It's all our money that they're spending. But, you know, the industrial carbon tax is still staying on. You know, again, there's a lot of issues in Canada, a lot of issues around housing affordability, and building homes and giving breaks to developers does not address affordable housing. We have it here. Okay. I'm involved in the apartment kind of business as well, and we have to have 20% of new units have to be affordable, but there's no accountability. So I can rent out to a friend of mine whose kid and give him 20% off the post-it rate of $2,500. It's not affordable. There's no rigor to any of these policies. Anyway, I'm getting off track, but I think what these Conservatives have done and what the Liberals have done. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Kathy, not happy. Linda in southern Alberta. She thinks they've spent far too much time trying to secure a majority and not working hard enough or long enough on the problems facing the country. Linda in southern Alberta. Hello, Linda.
Hello. Hello. Yes. Yeah, I'm of a very negative view on the way he's getting his majority. As I've said before, I don't believe in floor crossing. I think that's a breaking of trust for your voter, and his policies, the way he's doing it, he is undermining our democracy. And as an older voter that's voted for years, when it comes to federal elections, I don't even think it's worth voting for us out here anyway. And I know I have younger people that are the same. Like, why vote? Doesn't make a difference. So yeah, he's not helping Canada as a whole. I think he's fracturing us more so than before.
Okay. Yeah, all right, Linda. You know, this is something I have thought in the wake of so many floor crossings, 5 in less than a year, especially in the current environment where so few people are already voting in federal elections. And it'll be curious to see the voter turnout for these by-elections, which, you know, could hand this government its majority status. What is the voter turnout going to be? You already have let's say 40% of the people don't vote already. You know, say that number. Do you think that number gets better if the person they send to Ottawa doesn't respect their wishes and turns around and joins another party? Probably not.
No,
right?
I don't think it does. And yeah, and it's just, it undermines the whole system. Yeah, and I know the way the voting system is already set up. Ontario and Quebec pretty well tell us who's getting in anyway. So that's another reason why, you know, they look at it and say, why bother? But I'd be interested to know next time I see the lineup for the separation people voting, I'm going to ask them, so what's the increase since all of this has happened? How many people more have come and decided to sign?
Well, I'll be interested to know that too. And it's an important point you raised, Linda. Thank you. You know, does this give more life, wind in the sails, if you will, of the Alberta independence movement? How this is all unfolded, and the fact that a Liberal majority government will be decided in 3 ridings, 2 of them in Toronto, 1 in Montreal. We will go back to Nova Scotia and bring you back some more callers on Talkback from that part of the country coming up next. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So again, just a reminder what's on the line tonight with these 3 by-elections. With 1 win, the Liberals would have a majority government, but the Speaker would have to vote in the event of a tie, and you don't want that. You want the Speaker to be seen as being absolutely neutral. You don't want the Speaker to have to cast a vote. It's not a good look. With 2 wins, don't need to worry about that. The Liberals would have, their majority. If they take all 3, if you're a Liberal, because they might lose 1 MP because Nate Erskine-Smith from the Toronto area wants to run for the leadership of the Ontario Liberal Party. If they take all 3, all the better. But that kind of sets things up for tonight. But how do you view it? You know, as legit? Does it have a bad smell to it? Would it make you happy? Would it provide stability in a time of turmoil? Just how do you view this? The fact that we could be on the cusp of this. 1-833-668-2577. Jordan is in Halifax. Thanks for calling, Jordan.
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
Yeah, very good, Jordan. Yeah, good to hear from you, Jordan. What's your opinion?
I would have to second what Kathy said, and it's disgusting. You can cross the floor all you want, but right away there should be a by-election to determine if that's where your constituents want you to be. They vote you in as one party, whether it's conservative or liberal. I'd feel the same if it was conservatives crossing the floor to the liberals as well, and I'm a conservative. I don't agree with it. You're voted in by the people. You should represent them. You shouldn't just be able to cross over without another election to decide if that's what the people want.
Right. So I asked this last week. Would you support, say, an amendment to whatever law needs to be amended, or the creation of a new law that says if you want to leave the party you're with right now, you have to sit as an independent, or you have to run in a by-election? You would support something like that. Get the voters on the record.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you have to be an independent, but a by-election to have another, let the people decide, right? It's not what you decide, it's what the people decide.
Okay. Fair enough. Yep. Thank you, Jordan. So you think this would have a taint to it, in your opinion? Yep. Okay. All right. Yep. Fair enough. Bob, let's go to Dartmouth. From Halifax to Dartmouth, across the bridge we go. Hello, Bob.
G'day, sir. How are you? Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, very good, Bob. Yeah, you're welcome, Bob. What's your opinion, Bob?
Well, you know what? I think if any government's going to get stuff done in this country, they're going to need a majority. I don't think what's going to happen tonight is going to result in, a thunderous majority. We all know that is going to be a bare bones majority. But it'll allow Mr. Carney to start walking the walk or walking the talk. Like where I live, one of the refineries is going to be, the land is being sold to D&D. I mean, I can see throughout the last minority government, who I was not in favor of. I didn't like Trudeau. I didn't like my member of parliament. My new member of parliament with the reshuffle, I don't know. But they were, I don't know when the last time you were home, Rob, but there were construction cranes in Halifax everywhere with a minority government. So I think regardless of the stripe or the color, whoever talks, like, Pierre was, a rhyming politician. We got a statesman who's been test fired for a year, and let's let him walk his talk. So I don't care what color they are.
So what does that look like? What does that look like, though? But what does that look like? What does walking the walk look like?
Well, walking the talk, like, I mean, he's gonna build this new defense thing, hopefully for submarines in the old Imperial Oil refinery. I don't know how well you know Dartmouth and Halifax, Rob. I know you're from Cape Breton, but like I think pick a stripe. In a minority government, it's going to be harder for anybody to get things done. So with a minor majority, a small majority, that'll give him the ability to walk his talk. And then, you know what, like, I mean, I'm seeing the construction, it's foggy here today, but I can't see them, but, there's construction cranes everywhere. Under a minority government, what can we get done with a majority government? And like, again, I don't care what color,
Yeah. But you think it would be beneficial from the country, and this is what part of the selling point that they've pitched to voters, the Liberals in these by-elections campaigns, is this is an opportunity. Okay, we have a vision, we have a plan. It's a very turbulent place right now. We have a lot to get done in this country. We don't want to be impeded in Parliament. We can move faster if we have a majority government, and it seems to me that's how you look at it, and that's fair enough, Bob, if that's your view. 1-833, what's your view? 1-833-668-2577. We want to hear it on Talkback today. We'll be on the cusp of history here. We haven't had a majority government elected since 2015, so this would be the first time we've been actually governed by a majority government, you could say, in 8 years or so. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What do you think about the idea of a Liberal majority government that could come to pass mere hours from now? Zach is in Calgary. Up next. Hello, Zach.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Zach. What's your opinion?
Well, like I said last week, the whole thing, the floor crossers, undermining democracy, getting a majority government with no accountability or committees now after decades of failure and scandal, it's so demoralizing. Like, why bother with federal politics at this point? The lady who called,
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. The lady who called, she was curious about how young people feel about this. Well, for what it's worth, now she knows how I feel. A lot of the young people out, a lot of the young people out in Alberta, they just feel totally unrepresented federally. I mean, like Pierre, he motivated us, he galvanized us, and had us ready to turn the page, and still can't win. And this is anecdotal, but I've seen a lot more Alberta flags and signing stations around businesses and neighborhoods the last few weeks.
Right.
Like every person I know under 40 has signed the petition, and that includes a lot of the newcomers I've talked to. So
really?
I guess we'll see what happens next. The die is cast now.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Zach. Very interesting. Let's stay in Calgary. Heather is there. Hi, Heather.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine. Heather, what's your opinion?
Awesome. Well, I just want to tag along to the last caller's comment and just say that I'm also in Calgary. I can tell you that the vast majority of Calgarians, anyway, that I run into are not in support of Alberta separating. So I just need to add that in.
Sure.
As far as Carney taking over with a majority government, I actually voted for Conservatives this last time around. Not because I was a big fan of Pierre as a leader, but because I didn't think we should have a majority government. However, it's now been a year, and I'm actually okay with it. I feel confident that Carney will represent a lot of different perspectives of the Canadian people, not just traditional liberal lean. And I think he's the best person for the country at the moment. I think we might be in a different situation if Pierre was had a more solid plan, I guess, as a leader. And I guess there's no one really to take his place is the problem. And I do feel for the voters who voted for him. But by the same token, I think that it has to be a wake-up call to the Conservative Party that, look, you've just got to get someone new in here because you're losing ground with the person who's in power. So I'm okay with it, and I am actually hopeful that it's going to give us some of the changes that we need in order to continue to distance ourselves from our reliance on the states.
Okay. Thank you for your opinion. And we'll be back with more of your opinions, some highlights from question period today as well. Maybe one of the final few question periods of this minority government. I'm not too sure how soon these MPs will get to take their seats in the House of Commons, assuming it's, say 2 Liberals. The third one will be interesting tonight, that off-island suburban Montreal riding Terrebonne, where the Liberals, remember, won by one single vote. They say votes, your vote doesn't matter. Well, that particular riding in the last federal election, the result went all the way to the Supreme Court, which tossed that one vote victory for the Liberals last time around. And that's why that third by-election is being held in the Montreal area tonight. Gas prices was a big talker in the House of Commons today. Even though gas prices have dropped, oil prices are up today. Well, because of that Strait of Hormuz threat from Donald Trump. But a big night in politics ahead. The potential for a Liberal majority government. That's what we're talking about today. This is News Radio. Talking about the big night ahead in federal politics here on Talkback today. Great response so far. Depending on the outcome of 3 by-elections, the Liberals could have a majority government. Your thoughts, please. To Southern Ontario, Scott is there. Hello, Scott.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for taking my call today. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
There's one reason why Mark Carney is going to get a majority today, and that's Pierre Poilievre. Can you imagine, Rob, honestly, Rob, can you imagine in 2024 if Justin Trudeau had lost 4 MPs to Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party? They would have been calling for his head. He would have been told that he's lost the confidence of the party. He's lost the confidence of the country. He would have been told to resign and call an election. It all would have been Justin Trudeau's. But listening to your show today and listening to Conservatives call in, nobody has brought up the problem with the Conservative Party. And the reason why the Liberals are going to have a majority today is because of Pierre Poilievre. And so until the Conservative Party and Conservative voters realize this and make a change, it's not going to be good for them going forward.
Okay, well, I would just point out Conservative supporters had the chance to do that at the convention in late January in Calgary, and he secured the strongest support ever for a leader of a Conservative Party.
And And how many people didn't vote? How many people from Ontario and Quebec and Eastern Canada didn't make it all the way over to Alberta, to Calgary, to that convention? So how many people were missing? And then you had to pay $1,000. And how many people voted no? So he had what, 15%?
Well, still, these are people who are dyed-in-the-wool conservatives. They're on the ground. They're the ones with the lawn signs on the front lawns and the election signs in the windows. They're the ones, knocking on doors, making phone calls, volunteering with campaigns. These people are the heart and soul of the party, right?
Yes, and when 24 MPs, Liberal MPs, wrote a letter and signed it and sent it to Justin as Prime Minister and said, you need to step down, he was in denial at that point. He was in denial. And that's where Pierre is and the Conservative Party is right now. And it wasn't until Chrystia Freeland, stepped down and resigned from her roles and sort of that shock wave happened and put him into a position of having to say, okay, maybe I got to go. Pierre's not there yet. The Conservative Party hasn't put him there yet. But they say as many as 8 more Conservatives might cross the floor. So, I mean, at some point, Conservatives have to look at themselves in the mirror and say, listen. So
with these floor crossers, say with the four floor crossers from the Conservative Party, you're saying it's not that these people have no integrity or no moral compass. They just what?
Well, they're just tired of.
They just have a problem with Pierre Poilievre. They just have a problem with Pierre Poilievre.
Well, haven't they all indicated about his leadership on their exit interviews with the press? They've all said, "Hey, there's an issue with his leadership." You hear rumblings, you hear rumors about other people within the party and Pierre's style, and it's like, so what is he going to be, leader of the opposition for the next 3 years again? Like at some point, you have to take a look in the mirror. Today. Could be. Okay, Scott, look in the mirror. Conservatives, look in the mirror. Ernie in Kitchener up next. Hello, Ernie.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Ernie. What's your opinion?
Oh, I've just listened to the show for a while here, but I had strong opinions when I heard about the latest floor crossing. For me, it's a complete betrayal to Canadians and the constituents in that area. We know, like, so even Jean Leroux there that left in, the Edmonton riding, that area has never gone red. And to say that all of a sudden he had a change of heart and reflection on whatever from spending time with his family and completely switched sides, we know the question I'm asking is, what are they being offered behind the scenes? What do we know? You already know that the finance minister, he's already in some behind the scenes stuff with his wife in the rail. What are these people being offered to switch teams? And I know we're not going to find out that answer. Maybe one day it will come out. But for me personally, it just completely gives me a whole reason to not even believe in the system or to even go out and vote anymore. But we know if there was by-elections held in Edmonton or again in Sarnia there, we know they're going to go blue. But for you just to be able to say, screw you, your vote doesn't matter, and just get up and go, regardless of what.
Well, what about the previous caller? What about the previous caller, Scott, who said, hey, it's not the Liberals' fault that so many Conservatives are leaving Pierre's side and joining the Liberal side. It's a Pierre problem. What about that? What do you think of that?
I would say, though, too, there's a lot of days where I don't like my boss and I wish I could just leave, but I still have to follow my boss and listen to my boss. You know what I mean? And the fact is, because it's one leader, you're basically betraying your trust and all the people that voted for that constituent. So basically, if you're saying it's Pierre's fault, you're saying to all those Canadians, guess what? Because of Pierre, your vote does not matter. I'm just going to jump ship anyways. Because of Pierre? Come on. That's just an excuse. Why are they so scared of this man? That's what I don't understand. If he's so bad and so weak, why is he on the news 24/7?
All right. So you're upset, you're demoralized, you're kind of down. A little down in the dumps today?
Well, I am, but also, too, it's really lacking my trust and belief in the system that my vote actually matters, Rob.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ernie. Yeah, 1-833-668-2577. Lots of time to fit you in here on Talkback. Big day in Canadian politics. 3 by-elections, a Liberal majority government hanging in the balance. What do you think of that? This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Could we be just hours away from a Liberal majority government? Maybe, depending on the outcome of 3 by-elections being held tonight, 2 in the Toronto area, 1 in the Montreal area. How would you feel about that? A Liberal majority government. Having said that, after an election since 2015, more than 10 years ago now. Let's go to Norm, is in Calgary today. Hello, Norm.
Hi, Rob. I just wanted to comment. One of the previous callers said regarding the floor crossers, to me, it's an absolute betrayal of the beliefs that the constituents have in the individual when they vote for them. And quite frankly, I think there should be a by-election, and they should absolutely resign their seats until a by-election is held, because it's disgusting. And I want to go back to this business of separation in Alberta. I'm not a separatist, but I can tell you, if you think this separation is going to go away in Alberta, you're dreaming, because they had a big demonstration up in Edmonton just recently, and I can tell you the separatists are rubbing their hands together when they see what's happening in Ottawa right now. And Alberta hasn't had, for the past 10 years under Trudeau, who was a nightmare for this province, has not had any real comfort with the Liberal government. And as you well know, we've had Conservative governments out here for 48 years and 4 years of the NDP. Now, this province has been a major contributor to the economy of this country for years and decades. If Alberta were to separate, I can tell you, this country would break up entirely. And you know what? Central Canada better get their act together and realize this is what's happening in this country. And I'd hate to see it, but it is on the verge of something drastic is going to happen in years to come.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was wondering, if this could, give renewed strength or even more momentum to the independence movement. You've touched on it. I thank you for doing that, Norm, in Calgary today. 1-833-668-2577. Gas prices, of course, a hot topic. Gas prices up since the war started, down a bit in the last few days. We'll see what happens as the week goes on with the higher oil price today. But there were calls from the Conservatives in the House of Commons during the daily question period today for the government to do something about those gas prices. Melissa Lantsman, the deputy leader of the Conservative Party, handling the duties in question period against the finance minister.
Thornhill. Anybody going to the gas station right now knows that the prices are simply out of control. Today, a liter of gas in Ontario is $1.70, and in BC, it's over $2. You don't just pay for fuel at the pumps. You pay an excise tax of 10 cents, a fuel standard of 7 cents going to 17 cents, and a GST on all of that. All of those are just federal taxes, adding up to 25 cents on every liter. Liberal taxes have turned a bad situation into a tax grab for the government. Will they adopt the Conservative plan and suspend all of those gas taxes today?
The Honourable Minister for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we won't take lessons from these Conservatives. We are very, very aware of the situation, Mr. Speaker. We have been following this issue. Let me remind them that there's something called a conflict in the Middle East going on, Mr. Speaker. We're watching the situation. We had a meeting with our federal, provincial, territorial colleagues just last week, Mr. Speaker, and Canadians know that we are always there to support them in difficult times.
Yeah. The honourable member for Thornhill.
There are some things the government can control, and there are many things that it should control. For the Liberal government, the pain at the pump isn't a coincidence. It's actually a policy choice. It's up to them now how much tax goes on every liter of gas. That sits at 25 cents. But they can make it 0 cents by adopting our Conservative plan. While they delay, Canadian families suffer with an extra $20 every time they fill up. The Prime Minister has been looking at it while Canadians have been paying for it. When does he plan on doing something other than just monitoring the situation?
The Honourable Minister for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, in fact, we have done a lot, and let me remind the colleagues, because it's Monday, the first thing that we have done was to lower taxes for 22 million Canadians. Well, just talk to your constituent. They will tell you, my friend. Just ask your constituent, they will tell you. Mr.
It must go through the speakership. We've had 2 weeks break, but it feels like people have forgotten a lot. about the House of Commons. The Minister.
It's all about emotion and passion in this House, Mr. Speaker. One thing that I can say, Mr. Speaker, is that the first thing we did under this government, Mr. Speaker, has been to lower tax for 22 million Canadians. But more than that, Mr. Speaker, we were there for Canadians with respect to grocery. We have been there to help them with childcare. We have been there to help them with farmer care. We're there to help them with dental care.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
The minister won't stand up and
Groceries. Been there to help people with groceries. Has anybody's grocery bill gone down? Has anybody's price at the pump gone down? They're monitoring it. They have your back. The soon-to-be, if everything goes according to the way the experts think it's going to go, the soon-to-be Liberal majority government at work in Ottawa. Today, on the issue of gas prices. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Things could be about to get a lot easier for the Liberals and for Mark Carney in more ways than one, if they can manage to win these by-elections tonight, or even 2 out of 3. I mean, a majority government is way better than a minority government as long as you're the government with the majority government. With a minority government, I mean, you have to find ways to compromise. You have to take some water with your wine. With a majority government, you don't have to worry about anything that looks like compromise. You don't have to reach across the aisle or anything like that. You don't have to worry about mistakes happening with confidence votes like what happened with, Joe Clark's budget vote in 1979 that defeated his government and ushered in another Liberal majority government in the following election, the last one that was led by Prime Minister Trudeau. But with a majority government, the Liberals are basically going to be sitting pretty for the next 3 years. But here's the really big advantage: the makeup of committees. The parliamentary committees are where the drudgery of government unfolds. If you have a majority government, your party controls the committees, and that is very important, and it hasn't been the case in many years in Ottawa. If you're the majority, your party chairs all the committees, has the majority vote on all the committees, and that is a massive advantage if you want to say, contain a scandal. Like some of the past scandals, for example. You may all remember the SNC-Lavalin scandal, Jody Wilson-Raybould testifying how she was pressured into giving SNC-Lavalin a sweetheart deal to avoid prosecution because of its bribery and fraud problems in Libya. Everyone remembers that. She testified for hours on end at a parliamentary committee, at the Justice Committee, because it was 2019 and it was a minority government. And there was nothing the Liberals could do to prevent her from testifying because the Liberals didn't control the committees. The other parties did. If the Liberals had a majority government, the chances are very good she would never testify because the Liberals wouldn't allow it. Same thing with the weed charity scandal and the Kielburger brothers getting a nearly $1 billion sweetheart contract from the government while members of the Trudeau family were being paid fees by We Charity. That happened in 2020 when it was a minority government. So the opposition was able to call witnesses, compel those witnesses to testify, demand the production of all kinds of documents. Same with the Rodcan app scandal. And I could go on. The Green Slush Fund scandal and the people who were on the board of SDTC directing taxpayer money into ventures in which they had a stake. Reputations were ruined over that. People found to be totally lacking any ethics. Had no idea about conflict of interest. It was so bad the government shut it down. Rather than defend it, the government just shut it down. None of that, the point is, ever would have happened if the Liberals controlled the committees because they had a majority government. So the Liberals and their supporters will be able to say, now, maybe after tonight, oh, it will be good to have the stability of a majority government. But for everyone else, I'm telling you right now, It's going to be a lot more difficult, if not next to impossible, for opposition MPs to hold the government to account, because every time they're going to want to dig into something, demand to see documents, try to call witnesses that may be harmful to the government's reputation, the Liberals will use their majority government on the committees, and they will shut everything down. It's going to get a lot harder for the opposition to investigate the government of the day, if the government of the day has a majority government. It's just something to keep in mind. Polls close for those 3 by-elections, 8:30 Eastern time, so 6:30 in Calgary, and 9:30, of course, in Atlantic Canada, in the Maritimes. I'm Rob Snow. We're back tomorrow, brand new topic tomorrow for you for Talkback. Until then, the latest breaking news on News Radio